Salam alaikum. Je me présente aussi directrice de l'incubation d'entrepreneuriat et de la formation à l'Agence nationale de promotion et de développement des parcs technologiques. Donc nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue au cyberparc de Sidi Abdou et plus précisément dans l'incubateur. Donc pour le mot d'ouverture, notre directeur général, M. Terki, de Saoud.
Merci de l'interview. Bon, je remercie tout le monde ceux qui ont fait le voyage jusqu'à Sidi Abdou. Cette séance, ce séminaire de formation ou ce workshop, ça fait partie des efforts de l'ANPT pour un peu présenter les nouvelles technologies et l'utilisation des TIC dans tout ce qui est optimisation du fonctionnement des entreprises. Je tiens à remercier Algérie Télécom, bien sûr, et la VDN pour nous avoir accompagnés dans la préparation de ce séminaire. Et j'espère, bien sûr, je remercie les présentateurs qui ont bien voulu faire aussi le voyage en Algérie. Du coup, je leur souhaite la bienvenue. J'espère que leur séjour en Algérie sera fructueux et agréable. Et bien sûr, j'espère que ce séminaire sera utile pour tous les gens qui ont bien voulu assister et s'inscrire dans cette optique. Encore une fois, merci beaucoup et bon travail et bon courage.
Merci, Monsieur le Directeur Général. Donc, avant de commencer les présentations, juste quelques mots d'organisation. Donc, nous vous avons donné des cartables avec le programme du séminaire que vous trouverez dans les 2 dernières pages, ainsi que un livre des résumés de chaque intervention, par date et par heure, avec aussi la biographie des intervenants. Nous vous avons aussi donné un dispositif d'interprétation, donc pour ceux qui n'en ont pas encore, vous pouvez aller les récupérer. Il faut juste les brancher sur la chaîne 1. D'accord? Et ici, pour n'importe quelle question, donc, nous sommes les organisateurs, vous trouverez avec le badge, le fil gris. Donc n'hésitez pas, quoi que ce soit, il faut nous en parler. Voilà, donc pour vous présenter le programme et la première conférence, M. Terki Hassaine.
Bonjour, good morning. My name is Abdou, Hassaine. Been in the US over 30 years. I'm going to speak in English. How many of you are going to be okay with English? That's pretty good. Okay. There is a little translation here that's going, so if you need to get the dispositive, then you can get that. You can ask me questions in French if you want to as well, and I'm going to try to reply in English and a little bit of French, English a little bit. And also with me, I have Anwar Berwail. He's also Algerian American, and he will be able to kind of speak in English and French. However, I have 2 American citizens here, Jared and Lisa Couture. They're going to be pretty much all in English, so we're going to have to use the translation if you guys need any translation. And it will be, I will be here to translate as well as having our translator today to do the same. I'm going to go a little bit over the agenda, which we're going to do over these next 3 days. So I'm going to go over an overview of our agenda. You already have it in French, but I'm just going to put like a little bit of color as we go through each presentation and what's the need there. And then also some changes that we made a little bit so that you guys would be able to understand what we did. We took a couple of workshops and we combined them together because they made sense, so that this way at least you have the changes there. So we had already the introduction by Dr. Hassaine and now going over the overview. So after I go through the overview, we're going to do a little bit on, I'll give you guys a history of the call centers in the US and a little bit of how the evolution. I'm going to go from like the 1970s quickly to 80s, 90s, and then bring it to where we are right now, so that we can talk a little bit about how it has evolved. And I would be interested at one point, as I talk to you guys, and we're mingling and we're doing some networking, I would love to kind of get your point of view. Where do you think Algeria is in a spectrum? Is it the US in the 70s, or is it the 2000s? Just so that we'll be able to partner and actually help each other. This is Couture. Lisa is going to talk about CRM, customer relationship management, and how it plays a role in actually the call center and maybe in the sales and service culture. So she's going to have a good presentation here to help us kind of kick it off. Then we'll have a small panel discussion actually this morning where we're going to talk about the call center technology and applications. This is where we're going to have, how I'm going to moderate it. I'm going to have Anwar, Lisa, and Jared, and I'm going to ask them some questions to kind of get it going. But I would love to get questions from you guys as well, so that we have it more interactive versus actually just us speaking. So, and also, even when we're presenting, if you want to stop to ask questions, please do so. Don't wait until the end for us to have question and answers. We would love to have it interactive. As we're doing the presentations, it's okay to have an interactive session. And then the afternoon, we're going to have some workshops. Some are going to be here, and then we have 2 rooms adjacent to this room here where we'll be able to have some workshops. The workshops are going to be a little bit smaller groups, so hopefully we can split the people in 2 or 3, and then we'll have some specific subjects that we're going to talk about. We'll have a small presentation for maybe 30 minutes. We're going to introduce the subject, or 40 minutes. And then we'll have an interactive session. It could be an exercise where you work on something, or building something, or just an interactive session. So we're having almost 2 hours for those, so we would love to get a lot of interaction from you guys as well. So the first one, it's going to be contact center technology and applications. That's the one that actually Jared is going to talk about. He's going to give a little bit about all the technologies that are in the call centers and how they play a role today. Then workshop C, actually workshop A, we combined it on the second day with another workshop because it made sense. And we did the same thing here, workshop C. Actually, we took a workshop from the third day and we brought it to today because we felt that those 2 subjects complement each other and it made sense to have them in one session versus having them in 2 separate. Tomorrow, we'll start again the day, and we'll have Jerry talk a little bit about web and social media and how it's playing a role in the contact center. As you all know, today with Facebook and all the social media, it has made a big impact on the customer service area, and we'll talk about that. Then I'll speak a little bit about contact center improvement in operations. Contact centers in the US, they are pretty much a cost center, and reducing cost is key while maintaining customer experience. So I'll give you guys some examples of some work that's being done in the United States, has been done, to kind of show how we improve the customer experience and also the cost. Then in the contact centers, it's all about coaching and it's about the employees. So how do you drive these all through coaching? Lisa will talk about that subject. And then we'll have another panel discussion again to talk about leadership in call centers, agent recruiting, retention, and that's a huge in the US. I don't know how it is here in Algeria, but the call center job is an entry-level job, and a lot of people, they come in, they start working there, and they want to go and move on to something else. So it's about how to keep them motivated, how to retain them is key in the US because you don't want to have high turnover. And also, it's all about recruiting the right skill set. So we'll talk about that as a panel, and we'll be interested to hear some of your questions as well on how it's going to work here in Algeria. I mean, there are some parallels that actually we can work on. The afternoon, we're going to have Six Sigma Lean Six Sigma, it's a tool that's used in manufacturing in the old days, and now it's being used in the service industry, and how it's being used in the call center to improve actually cost and experience. The second workshop, this is where we combined actually the first workshop from today on your agenda with the one tomorrow, and then we're going to kind of bring the two workshops together. And then the third workshop is going to be a little bit of a trend that's happening in the US. It's all about robotics and robotics process automation. And I'll talk about that a little bit in my presentation and how it's all about automating the repetitive processes. So Jared is going to talk about the state of robotics. It just started. It started about 3-4 years ago, and about 2 years ago, actually, it's really kicking off in the United States. And it's also, if you heard about artificial intelligence, AI, that is actually we believe is going to be a game-changing technology disruptive in the call center business. So if you are starting to think about a call center right now, even though this might seem futuristic or science fiction, I would encourage you to think about this because you might be able to leapfrog and do what the US is trying to do. You might just kind of come in and do it right now. So it's going to be an interesting subject. We're just going to give you an overview of what's going on there. Very exciting subject and very exciting work that's being done actually in the US. The third day, we'll start today with setting clear expectations and accountability in call centers. The call center business is the only job where you can measure and know when your employees are at every second of the day. At least if you have the right tools and the right processes, then you'll be able to measure when they come in, when they went to break, when they came to lunch, when they come back, what are they doing at the time? Are they taking a call? Are they just sitting there waiting for a call? So you have a lot of information if you have the right technology. So from an employee perspective, it feels that you're always watching them. So it's this love-hate relationship between the employee and management, and so how to set the right expectations and have the accountability with all these tools and information. So it's going to be a great balance that Lisa will talk about on the third day. And Jared will talk about the human factors and user experience, usability. So technology comes in, and some of us will be able to figure it out quickly, like little kids. You can give them an iPhone, you can give them a tablet, and then they figure it out. An old person like me, you give me an iPhone, and I'm still figuring it out. Do I slide? Do I do this? So, but if you think about what Steve Jobs did, he really thought about how you can have the user experience and the human factor before creating the iPhone. He didn't create the iPhone and said, let's figure out how to use it. He thought about that. So I'll give you this example. So Jared, actually, that's his field of expertise, and he's going to talk about that and how those two play a bigger role in technology and contact center. Then I will talk a little bit about how to unlock the customer KPIs and in the call centers. And like I said earlier, we can measure everything. We have a lot of data, a lot of information. And then how do you sift through all of the information to be able to actually select the right key performance indicators and to improve your experience. Here on this session here, I'm going to talk about customer satisfaction and how, because there are a lot of metrics, but I'm going to focus only on customer satisfaction. Then the panel discussion is going to be about the lesson learned in the contact center environment. So Lisa has a lot of background in sales, I have a lot of background in service, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we've learned through our 20, 30 plus years experience in the call center. So we have a lot of stories to tell, and we tell you some things that we learned, some things that we did, and we shouldn't have done, and something that we didn't do that we would love to have done. So we share with you our experiences, so hopefully as you're getting into this space, you learn from our mistakes at least. Then the afternoon, we're going to have the last two workshops. One is going to be Lisa talking about the recognition program to improve employee engagement. Like I said earlier, in the US, the call center reps or the agents, they're watched day in, day out. But how do you actually encourage them and give a recognition program? Because we really want to keep them. So employee recognition is huge in the US, and we want to make them feel important to be able to at least stay in the job. So that's a big deal. And then we'll close it by actually the other workshop here, which is going to be on leadership and management in the contact center. So that's kind of an overview of the program, and I know you have it in your printout. Also, you have a little bit of detail of each session, exactly what it says, each branch, and then you'll be able to hopefully connect the dots. So we're very excited that actually we're here, and we're going to be giving you some information over the next 3 days, and I would encourage, again, the participation as we're going. Any questions? If there are no questions, that means I did a very good job. All right. All right. The contact center industry is a huge industry in the U.S. and all over the world. But the U.S. has been actually the leader in the field, and it's in I don't know the exact number, but it's in a billions of dollars industry. Although it's in the U.S. call center business, but it's all over the world. The U.S. had figured out how to outsource most of their call center business into different countries, mainly in the Philippines, also in India, and also in other countries in South America. So those are the areas where you find a lot of call centers. To give you an idea, if you're familiar with Chase, JP Morgan Chase Bank, they have about 20,000 employees in Manila, in the Philippines. So 20,000 in kind of 2 or 3 buildings. And then just to service a small piece of their call center work and business. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey. So let's talk about 1970s and before. So the service model was performed in the branch and offices. So think about the bank. I don't want to talk about every industry. So I'm going to focus on the banking industry to kind of bring some parallels. So in the 70s, it used to be you go to the branch, you go to the bank, and you talk to a person in a counter, or you talk to a person about opening an account, and that was the service. Everybody went to the office or to the bank. And if you were a high-value client, you have a lot of money in the bank, and they know you, you could pick up the phone and say, I want to talk to the branch director, and then they say, hi, Mr. So-and-so, yes, I know who you are, and then they maybe do a transaction. So the customer service at the time was done by the branch director. And it was only for a few clients, so that's how it was. Then come the 1980s, where the technology started actually coming in, and self-service started. So one is, instead of going to the bank, inside the bank, there were the ATMs outside, and then you can go in and take your money out. So that was the beginning of self-service. And changing kind of the model of going in and talking to someone versus doing it as a, in an ATM machine. And I remember at the time I had just moved to the US, and actually there would be bank employees sitting outside the ATM machine, and then you're coming in, and then they say, oh, you just want to take some money out? Yes, well, let me show you how to do it. So they trained the customers how to kind of move from going in inside the bank to staying outside. So that was the beginning of moving customers outside the premises, outside the centers. And then at the same time, this whole automatic call distributors, ACDs, started kind of coming into play. It was a technology that came in where the calls come in, and then now there was a way to say, okay, I know this call came in from Abdou, and he's a high-value client, and he has maybe a loan, and I want to send it to this group. So they kind of automatic call distribution. So that's kind of routing, the beginning of routing. And so the banks started saying, wait a minute, I have 20 or 100 banks in the city, and each bank I have one person sitting there doing some customer service. So rather than having 100 people across all the city, let me bring them into a center like this, put them all in one building, and now they're answering, and I have this call distributor, and I can have them pretty much, that was the birth of call centers in the US. So that's when they started kind of thinking, okay, let's bring them in. And then what they found out is that, oh, when I bring 100 people together, as a matter of fact, I don't need 100 people. I just need maybe 80, because now I have economies of scale. I have an opportunity to find out what, well, maybe they were not actually as efficient as they used to be. So then it was kind of a big light bulb coming in for businesses that say, well, I can save money actually in the process. And then now we were servicing more clients, not just the high-value clients. Now everybody started calling in, and just instead of going to the bank or going to the branch, they actually started just moving the call center and calling them. So it was kind of the birth. And then in the early 1990s, in the banks, there was this whole consolidation. Banks were buying banks. So it was huge in the US. There was a lot of consolidation of banks. There used to be, thousands of banks, and then they were kind of buying each other. And then as they were buying each other, then they say, oh, you have a call center here, you have a call center here. So then they had to really start saying, well, we need to start centralizing call centers. And at the same time, as we were bringing the call center together, then the intelligent call routing between centers started happening. What happened there is, remember when I said that we have automated call center distribution in one location? So if you have one here in Algiers and one in Oran, and then the calls, if they came into Oran and they sit there, you can no longer take them out and bring them back to Algiers. So when the call is sent to a center, you cannot take it out. And it was very inefficient. So this whole efficient core, inefficient core routing started kind of getting more efficient in the late 90s. And what's happened is now you can keep a call in the cloud. At the time they called it the cloud, before the cloud is what we know today. And they said, okay, before I send it to a center, let me make sure that someone is available before I send it. And that became huge, especially if you're consolidating. If you think company like Chase at the time, and they had maybe at the time 30,000 employees in the call center business. At that time, this is in the 90s. And if you just have only a 10% reduction or efficiency of 30,000 employees, that's 3,000. And if you do the math, 3,000 times 100,000, that's how much it costs for an employee in the US. So you can do the math, it was huge. So as you're consolidating banks, we found actually that the call centers we were able to save a lot of money. So it became a catalyst for us. Then this whole thing about IVR, instead of actually talking to an agent, maybe if you just want to find out what is your balance, then actually you can just do it in the IVR, in the system, interactive voice response unit. So press 1 if you want your balance, and then it will give you the balance. So that was actually a big beginning of channel migration from actually having a call center rep answer the call to actually doing it automatically. So if you see me slowing down a little bit because they asked me to slow down. Then this whole thing about the World Wide Web. You guys know what the World Wide Web, www. something? That's when it started actually in the mid-90s, 1995, 96. That's when it started coming into play. And then if you were in a call center business at that time, you would be saying, what is this? Is it going to make a change? Is it going to change our business? We didn't know at the time, but actually it came in, and I'll talk about it. So the other thing that happened right in the early 2000s was the speech IVR. So the IVR, which is the interactive voice response, instead of saying pressing 1, then it started actually, tell me what you want. And you just speak and you say, I want my balance. Instead of pressing 1 for your balance, then you say it. And then now it's like you're talking to a human being. Now, it wasn't as good as it is right now. It had a lot of issues, but it was the beginning of that. And then this whole virtual call routing also started again. When we were talking about the cloud, if you think about, I said that's like a company like Chase, they had call centers in the Philippines, they have call centers in Costa Rica, they have call centers in the US, and now they had to really route calls all over the world. And that became actually the early 2000s. That's when a lot of companies started solving that problem from a technology perspective. And then there was an explosion of call center software for efficiency. Everything you think about, from quality monitoring, customer satisfaction, reporting, analytics, scheduling, forecasting, all of these started kind of coming into play because before that we were doing it in Excel spreadsheets, we were doing it by hand, we were trying to solve it, and then people started, from a technology space, they said, well, I can solve your problem by creating this software for you that I'm going to bring all the information from your telephony switch, from your forecasting, from your scheduling, and they started bringing all of this information for us as a call center manager that I'll be able to manage my call center better. So this was a big explosion, and it's still happening. But I don't think it's ever going to stop. Then in the early 2000s, the digital era is born. Facebook, email, chat. I'm sure I might be, not getting my dates right, but to kind of give you an idea, this is where it started, actually having an impact on call center. And then we started thinking, all right, now I can answer calls, now I have emails coming in, I have chats. How do I do it? How do I manage all of these multi-channels? You hear about omni-channel, so how do you manage that? So that was the beginning, and I think we're still struggling with it to a certain extent in the US. It sounds easy, and also a lot of solutions are out there, and they claim that they can solve it, but we're still actually trying to figure it out. Can you take a call and do an email and do a chat, or how do you balance all of that? It's a little harder than how it seems, but we're always trying to solve it. And then social media. Now, as companies, in the past, customer service is huge in the US. So the client is key, the customer is key. But if, let's say, as a company, you messed up the experience with one of your customers, they didn't have a way to actually talk about you as a company. They would be upset, they would want to talk to a manager, then talk to their friend, and say, hey, I had a bad interaction with Chase. But this whole thing about Facebook and Twitter and all of this came along, and then you can go in and you say, Chase sucks. Chase is not good. And then we as businesses, now we started kind of being insulted, if you will, or having a lot of bad feedback on us, and everybody knows it, the whole world. So how do you deal with that? Or I just talked to customer service, and the person on the other line that was trying to help me didn't understand what the product is. So we were no longer insulated, so everybody knows about your experience as a company. And this has transformed the way actually customer service is done in the US at least, and I'm sure it's other parts of the world. And this whole apps things kind of started coming in. App, do you know an app? I mean, maybe if you guys remember that time, it was almost like, 20 years ago. It's like, what is an app? And we were like, I don't know, it's gonna make a difference. Well, guess what? I think it made a difference. And let's talk a little bit about what it did. Well, this one is an example. Let's go here. So the late 2000s, this is what I talked about, omni-channel and website, impact on contact center. So now customers could go actually to the web and find their information so they didn't have to call us. And also, the whole question is like, do you want to build a web or do you want to build an app? That was a question that was happening at the time. And because the invention of the iPhone, and I'll talk about that in a second. So we were really, as a business, thinking about, do I invest in building a website and doing all my servicing in a website, or do I do it in an app? Then the late 2000 came in the banks, actually the financial crisis, and the recession was huge in 2007, 2008. And this one actually led to a big catalyst for cost reductions. So banks, to survive, they wanted to reduce costs. And one of the ways in call centers we reduce cost was now that we needed to actually take the calls and move them to a country where actually the cost was a lot lower. So instead of having a call center in the US, you do outsourcing, exactly. So instead of having the calls done in the US and you pay an agent maybe, let's say, an average $20 an hour, you can take it to the Philippines and pay $3 an hour. So it was a huge change in the late 2000s where that's where there was an explosion of a lot of outsourcing all over the world. And then social media, we've been thinking about it. Is it a fad? Is it going to go? Well, it was here to stay. So I guess Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook forced it on us, and Twitter and all of that. So then we started talking about digital care. This was now the era where we are right now, and it's really about the whole digital. And it's not the call center answering the phone. Now it's just, you have to have it. It's part of doing business. Now it's all about the digital care. How do you service your customers in a digital sense? How do you reduce the effort? How do you centralize knowledge? Do you have the knowledge in your company, or do you give it to your customers? Do you have your customers educating your customers? Do you have your customers answering questions for your customers? So this whole thing about how you do that. Does your agent become a concierge? Becomes the person that's actually help between the channels? So that was this is what we're talking about right now. And then, like I was talking about forums, automation, and voice of the customer is becoming key also. It was easy to have the voice of the customer in a contact center. After the phone call, you can do a survey and figure out what's happening. But now in social media, you can have that instantly. And then you can see here, this is early 2000s, or in 2000s, you can just see I talked about the email, the communities, the listening, outreach, and mobile social media sharing. So this is where it became huge. We are kind of right now in the mobile social media. Everything is in mobile. So I think I have that. And then there was the iPhone. The iPhone is born, right? And it changed the whole way we do. I mean, iPhone, and then it happens to Android, and everybody's kind of copying what Apple did. But but what happened is, at the end of the day, the apps Remember we were talking about website or apps, so the apps are ruling the world now, everything is an app, because I'm sure you deal with the same thing. And customer as we know it, customer service as we know it is dead. So we are in a totally new era today in customer service. Although we are talking about contact centers, and contact centers are the bare bones of the service, but on this whole social media, this whole apps, it has changed the way we do business. And we're thinking totally differently than the way we used to. And I'm sure as you guys are looking at your platform, you need to really think about how you use social media. Is it to really enter the conversation, to get closer to your customers? Because remember, when you're in a call center, it's just a phone call, and everybody is one-to-one relationship. But now with the web, it's almost like you're going back to the old store that we used to have, where people come into the store and talk to the owner or talk to the person that does service. Now you can do that actually on the web. You can create this whole store. So you can get closer to your customers, to build your brand, to leverage support desk help, and to make connection with your customers. Also, to do a lot of research. Now you have more data, more information, because everybody is going in there and collaborating, and is telling you what's happening, and is asking you, and they're talking to each other. And also as a company, you have to be cool today, because it's cool, the apps are cool, and everything is cool, so you cannot be an old, stodgy company. So you have to actually, as companies that's been there, like if you think about banks, they have to actually, if you look at ads, they are actually trying to be cool. The other thing that was interesting lately, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Burger King, McDonald's. Actually, they have departments today that actually write stories to be cool and to talk to their customers. It's kind of like an entertainment business, like if you have a television show and you have writers to write the story, what they're going to talk about this week, which episode they're going to work on. Actually, that's actually starting in the US. And I was just reading that actually Burger King and these chains, these are McDonald's, they're having these small groups of 10 people, and they're just writing stories, how to be cool, how to write every day, and how to connect with their customers. So it's changing. Of course, social media, you can use it to do technical support, to help, customer engagement, to build communities. And then, as you know, you can also Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, online groups, YouTube, everything today is another channel that we're using to connect with our customers. One thing that we're doing more in the US that we used to do that's different, now it's no longer a pull business where the customers are pulled to us and we answer their questions. Today we're pushing information to our customers so that they don't have to call us or they don't have to reach out to us. So we're going from a pull to a push information. Instead of pulling them to us, we're pushing information to them so that actually we can help. So today, if you, for example, have a question about fixing something, let's say something broke, you can go to YouTube and then you find a video on it on how to fix it. So no longer calling in the center and saying, hey, although I do it because I'm old school, if I get something and I need to fix it, I'll call and I'll say, hey, I have this problem, can you figure it out? Actually, let me tell you guys a good story that happened. So we bought this bed frame, and it was delivered to us. So it's kind of a headboard, and then the rails, and then footboard, and then you can put your mattress. So it's kind of one piece, and then 3 other pieces. And then I get it, and I just see just the headboard. And I'm like, what is the rest of the stuff? And I was like, oh, maybe they were supposed to deliver 2 boxes. So instead of going to YouTube and asking my own question, so actually I called the call center, and I said, hey, I just got this headboard here that I ordered, and I think things are missing. And is it supposed to be 2 boxes? And he said, okay, sir, can you give me the order number? Actually, I didn't ask me about the order number. With my phone number, he was able to find out who I was and the order number. And he goes, sir, if you can flip the headboard to its back. So I flipped it. And he said, I think there is a zipper, and then you open it. So they put actually the other pieces inside the headboard. So that was like interesting for me. So definitely everything today is about delivery in the United States. People are, maybe one day nobody's gonna go to the stores. Everybody's ordering online. But it's changing the world. Like for example, like I said, in this case, I did go and call, but I'm sure if someone younger than me, they probably would have gone online and asked the question, yeah, I just received this headboard, and it looks like it's missing some pieces, and another customer maybe would say, hey, don't worry about it, I think it's in the back, go and look at it. So you don't even have to call someone. So the world is changing as we know it, like I said. So as a company, you know, and the community, you need to look at your company and product updates, like in this case, that's the example I used, you know, relevant links, relevant videos. So as companies, the way we're doing it today, we're no longer building internal procedures for our agents. We're building procedures actually for the customers that our agent can use. So the world has been flipped with all of this information. Everything is actually available out there, like I said, because customers are helping customers. Then where do we go from here, right? Like I said earlier, we're going to talk about it tomorrow. Jen's going to talk a little bit about this. It's all about robotic process automation, how we're going to automate a lot of, robots are going to do a lot of work that agents are doing today, or questions that are being answered. Video customer service. So now we're talking about, instead of just talking to someone on the line, you want to do like a Skype or Facebook. So now at least you see the agent on the other line. So if they're upset, you can see that the customer is upset. If the agent is not smiling, you can see that the agent is not smiling. So now there's going to be more transparency on customer service. But just because now it's the technology is here that we'll be able to do it. And then finally, artificial intelligence, right? I mean, we're talking about AI, artificial intelligence. It's a new, I know it sounds like science fiction, and hey, is this going to happen? But definitely, I think we're starting to see some applications, and this is going to be a new frontier that will happen in customer service. Maybe even going to Mars, right? So that kind of gives you a little bit of the journey. I just wanted to kind of give you guys where we've been in the U.S. in the call centers and where we are right now and where we're going. So hopefully it kind of gives you a glimpse of what we've done. People wrote books on this, so I did it like in about half an hour to kind of just give you guys like a little bit of a journey. So I don't know where Algeria is, where you guys are. So I don't know. I would be interested to hear from you guys. Where do you think you guys are fitting in customer experience?